In the days that followed Prince Boma's transformation back into a human, the village of Ajuju buzzed with excitement and curiosity. People couldn't stop talking about the amazing events they had witnessed. The story of the prince who turned into a giant rooster spread like wildfire, reaching even the farthest corners of the kingdom. King Agatha, still reeling from the shock of Ula's betrayal, sat on his throne, deep in thought. His once cheerful face now looked tired and sad. The weight of recent events pressed heavily on his shoulders. "Your Majesty," a soft voice called. It was Kioma, Bulma's mother, standing at the entrance of the throne room. The king looked up, managing a weak smile. "Come in, Kioma." She walked in, her colourful robe swishing as she moved. "How are you feeling, my king?" she asked, her voice full of concern. King Agatha sighed deeply. "I'm managing," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I never imagined Ula could do such a thing. All these years." Kioma placed a comforting hand on the king's shoulder. "None of us saw it coming. But now we must focus on healing, both for Bulma and for our kingdom." As they spoke, Prince Boma entered the room. He looked different now. His eyes, once filled with mischief, now held a new depth of understanding. The curse and its breaking had changed him profoundly. "Father, Mother," he greeted them, bowing slightly. "Bulma, my son," King Agatha said, his voice softening. "How are you feeling?" Bulma walked closer, his step slow and thoughtful. I'm not sure, Father. Everything feels different now. It's like I'm seeing the world through new eyes." "That's understandable," Kioma said gently. "You've been through something no one else has experienced." Bulma nodded, then turned to his father. "I want to make things right, Father. I want to return everything I've ever stolen." King Agatha's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with pride. "That's a noble decision, my son. It won't be easy, but it's the right thing to do." And so, over the next few days, Prince Boma, accompanied by palace guards, went around the village, returning items he had stolen over the years. It was a humbling experience for the young prince. At one house, an old man answered the door. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw the prince standing there. "Your Highness," he exclaimed, bowing awkwardly. "What brings you to my humble home?" Bulma took a deep breath. "Sir, I've come to return something that belongs to you." He held out a small wooden figurine. I stole this from your shop years ago. I'm here to return it and ask for your forgiveness." The old man's hands trembled as he took the figurine. "I remember this," he said softly. "I carved it for my granddaughter, but it disappeared before I could give it to her." He looked up at Bulma, his eyes misty. "Thank you for bringing it back, Your Highness." As Bulma continued his journey of redemption, word spread quickly through the village. People were amazed at the change in their prince. Many who had suffered losses over the years finally understood what had happened to their belongings. Meanwhile, back at the palace, King Agatha was dealing with another pressing matter. The banishment of Queen Ula had left a void in the royal household, and her daughters were struggling to cope with their mother's absence. One afternoon, the king found his eldest daughter, Princess Adana, sitting alone in the palace garden. Her eyes were red from crying. "Adana," he said gently, sitting beside her. "What troubles you, my child?" Adana looked up at her father, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Father, I miss Mother. I know what she did was wrong, but she's still our mother. Can't we forgive her?" King Agatha's heart ached at his daughter's words. He put an arm around her shoulders. "Forgiveness is a journey, Adana. What your mother did caused great harm, not just to Boma, but to our entire kingdom. It will take time for those wounds to heal. But will we ever see her again? Adana asked, her voice small and vulnerable. The king sighed. I don't know, my dear. For now, we must focus on healing our family and our kingdom. Perhaps in time, we can consider reaching out to her. As the royal family grappled with their personal struggles, the village of Ajuju was slowly returning to normal. However, the events of the past weeks had left a lasting impact on everyone. One day, as Prince Boma was walking through the village market, he overheard two women talking. Did you hear? One woman whispered to her friend. They say the prince has changed completely. No more stealing, no more lies. It's like he's a different person. Her friend nodded enthusiastically. I saw him yesterday, helping old Mama Suri carry her baskets. Can you believe it? The prince, doing manual labor. Bulma smiled to himself as he walked past. It felt good to be changing people's perceptions of him, but he knew he still had a long way to go to fully earn their trust and respect. As he continued through the market, he found himself at the stall of Nana, the witch who had helped break his curse. She looked up as he approached, her wise eyes studying him carefully. Prince Boma, she greeted him. I see the changes in you. How does it feel to be free of the curse? Bulma bowed his head respectfully. It's overwhelming, Nana. I feel like I'm learning how to live all over again. But I'm grateful for this second chance. Nana nodded, a small smile on her wrinkled face. Second chances are precious, young prince. Use yours wisely. As Bulma turned to leave, Nana called out to him. Remember, Prince Boma, the curse may be broken, but its effects linger. Stay vigilant and keep your heart pure. Her words echoed in Bulma's mind as he made his way back to the palace. He knew she was right. This was just the beginning of his journey. Back at the palace, King Agatha was meeting with his advisors. The room was filled with tension as they discussed the recent events and their impact on the kingdom. Your Majesty, one advisor spoke up, the people are still uneasy. They worry about other hidden curses or magic that might be affecting the royal family. Another advisor nodded in agreement. Perhaps we should consider banning all forms of magic in the kingdom, just to be safe. King Agatha held up his hand, silencing the murmurs. No, he said firmly. Magic has been a part of Ajuju for generations. It has brought us both good and harm. Banning it would only drive it underground and make it more dangerous. He stood up, his voice strong and resolute. Instead, we will establish a council of wise men and women, including both white and black witches. They will help regulate the use of magic in our kingdom and ensure it is used responsibly. The advisors exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement, others looking skeptical. But none dared to argue with the king's decision. As the meeting concluded, King Agatha called for the oracle. The wise man entered the room, his presence immediately commanding respect. Oracle, the king said, I need your guidance. How can we ensure that what happened to Bulma never happens to anyone else in our kingdom? The oracle closed his eyes, seeming to look into a realm beyond their understanding. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant. The key lies not in controlling magic, but in understanding it. Educate your people. Teach them to recognize the signs of curses and dark magic. Knowledge is the greatest protection against the unknown. King Agatha nodded thoughtfully. Thank you, Oracle. Your wisdom, as always, is invaluable. As the king pondered the oracle's words, Prince Boma was facing his own challenges. Despite his efforts to make amends, some villagers still regarded him with suspicion. Years of mistrust couldn't be erased overnight. One afternoon, as Bulma was helping to repair a damaged roof in the village, he overheard a group of young men talking nearby. "Look at him, playing the hero," one sneered. "As if a few good deeds can make up for years of stealing and lying." Another chimed in. "Once a thief, always a thief. I bet he's just waiting for the right moment to go back to his old ways." Bulma's heart sank at their words, but he kept working, determined to prove them wrong through his actions rather than words. As he worked, an old woman approached him, carrying a jug of water. "Don't mind them, young prince," she said kindly, offering him a drink. "Change takes time. Keep doing what you're doing, and they'll come around eventually." Bulma smiled gratefully, touched by her kindness. "Thank you," he said softly. "I won't give up." Meanwhile, in a small hut at the edge of the forest, far from the village, Queen Ula sat alone. Her once regal appearance was now disheveled, her eyes red from crying. The weight of her actions and the consequences of her jealousy pressed heavily upon her. As she sat there, staring into the dying embers of her fire, a knock sounded at her door. Startled, she hesitated before answering. "Who's there?" "It's me, Mother," came a familiar voice. Ula's heart leapt. She rushed to the door, throwing it open to reveal her youngest daughter, Princess Zara, standing there. "Zara!" Ula cried, pulling her daughter into a tight embrace. "Oh, my child, how I've missed you." Zara hugged her mother back, tears streaming down her face. "I missed you too, Mother. I had to see you to understand." Ula pulled back, wiping the tears from her daughter's cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Zara. I never meant for any of this to happen. My jealousy, it consumed me." Zara nodded, her young face serious. "Father and Bulma told us everything. It's hard to understand, Mother. How could you do such a thing?" Ula sighed deeply, guiding her daughter to sit by the fire. "Jealousy is a terrible thing, my dear. It clouds your judgment, makes you do things you never thought you were capable of. I let it control me, and in doing so, I hurt the people I love most." As mother and daughter talked late into the night back in the village, preparations were underway for a grand feast. King Agatha had declared a day of celebration, not just for Prince Boma's return to his human form, but for the resilience of their community in the face of adversity. The village square was alive with activity. Colorful banners hung from every building, and the air was filled with the delicious smells of cooking food. Children ran around, playing games and laughing, while adults bustled about, making final preparations. In the palace kitchens, the cooks were working overtime, preparing dish after dish of delicious food. Prince Boma, much to everyone's surprise, had volunteered to help. "Your Highness," the head cook said, looking flustered, "you really don't need to do this. It's not proper for a prince to be working in the kitchens." Bulma smiled as he continued chopping vegetables. "Proper or not, I want to help. Besides, it's the least I can do after everything that's happened." The cook shook her head in amazement, but didn't argue further. As they worked, Bulma found himself enjoying the simple task. It was so different from his old life of taking things that didn't belong to him. As evening fell, the village gathered in the square. King Agatha stood on a raised platform, looking out over his people. Beside him stood Prince Boma, looking nervous but determined. The king raised his hands and a hush fell over the crowd. "People of Ajuju," he began, his voice strong and clear. We have been through much in recent times. We have faced challenges we never expected, seen magic used for both good and ill. But through it all, we have remained strong. He placed a hand on Boma's shoulder. My son stands here today, not just as your prince, but as a symbol of redemption and second chances. Let his journey remind us all that it's never too late to change, to make amends, to become better versions of ourselves. Boma stepped forward, his heart pounding. He had asked his father for permission to speak, knowing he owed the people an apology. People of Ajuju, he said, his voice shaky at first, but growing stronger. I stand before you today to ask for your forgiveness. For years, I took advantage of your trust, stole from you, lied to you. I know now how wrong that was. He took a deep breath before continuing. I cannot undo the past, but I promise you this. From this day forward, I will dedicate myself to serving you, to being the prince you deserve. I ask, not for your immediate trust, but for the chance to earn it. A moment of silence followed his words. Then, from the back of the crowd, a voice called out, "We forgive you, Prince Boma." Another voice joined in. "We're with you, Your Highness." Soon, the entire square was filled with cheers and applause. Boma felt tears prick his eyes, overwhelmed by the people's response. As the feast began, laughter and music filled the air. People ate, drank, and danced, celebrating not just their prince's transformation, but their community's strength and unity. In a quiet corner of the square, Nana the witch watched the celebrations with a small smile. The oracle approached her, nodding in greeting. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" he asked quietly. Nana's smile widened. "I saw the possibility, but the future is never certain, old friend. It takes courage to change it." The oracle nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed. And what do you see for our young prince now?" Nana's eyes twinkled mysteriously. "His journey is far from over. There are still challenges ahead, lessons to be learned, but he has taken the first steps on a new path." As the night wore on, the celebrations continued. In the palace, King Agatha stood on his balcony, looking out over the joyful village. Despite the happiness around him, a part of his heart still ached for Ula. "You made the right decision," a voice said behind him. He turned to see Kioma standing there. He sighed. "Did I? Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh." Kioma placed a comforting hand on his arm. "You did what you had to do to protect our son and our kingdom. Ula made her choices, and now she must live with the consequences." The king nodded, but the sadness didn't leave his eyes. "I just hope that someday we can find a way to heal all the wounds this has caused." As the feast wound down and the villagers began to return to their homes, Prince Boma found himself walking through the quiet streets. The events of the day had left him feeling both exhilarated and exhausted. He paused as he passed the spot in the market where he had transformed into a rooster. The memory still felt surreal, like a strange dream, but the lessons he had learned from the experience were all too real. "It's strange, isn't it?" a voice said, making him jump. He turned to see the old woman who had given him water earlier that day. "What's strange?" he asked. She smiled kindly. "How sometimes we need to lose ourselves completely to find who we truly are." Bulma nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand what you mean. I'm not the same person I was before all this happened." "And that's a good thing, young prince," she said, patting his arm. "Change is how we grow. Remember that, As she walked away, Bulma stood there for a moment, reflecting on her words. He knew that his journey was far from over. As the days passed, life in Ajuju slowly settled into a new rhythm. Prince Boma continued his efforts to make amends, working alongside the villagers and learning the value of honest labor. The people, though still wary at times, were beginning to see the genuine change in their prince. One sunny morning, as Bulma was helping to repair a broken fence on the outskirts of the village, he noticed a group of children watching him curiously. He smiled and waved, but they shyly ducked behind a nearby bush. "It's okay," he called out gently. "You don't have to hide. Would you like to help?" Slowly, the children emerged from their hiding place. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, stepped forward bravely. "Are you really not going to steal anymore, Prince Bulma?" she asked, her wide eyes full of innocence and curiosity. Bulma's heart clenched at her question, but he answered honestly. "No, little one. I've learned that stealing hurts people, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to help people instead." The little girl nodded solemnly, then broke into a wide grin. "Can you teach us how to fix fences too?" And so, for the rest of the morning, Prince Bulma found himself surrounded by eager children, teaching them how to hammer nails and align wooden planks. Their laughter and enthusiasm were infectious, and for the first time in a long while, Bulma felt truly happy. Meanwhile, in the palace, King Agatha sat in his study reviewing trade agreements. There was a soft knock at the door. "Enter," he called, expecting another advisor with more papers to sign. To his surprise, it was his daughter, Princess Adana. She entered hesitantly, looking nervous. "Father, do you have a moment?" King Agatha set aside his papers, giving his daughter his full attention. "Of course, Adana. What's on your mind?" Adana took a deep breath before speaking. "Father, I went to see Mother." The king's eyes widened in surprise. "You went to see Ula? When? How?" "A few days ago," Adana admitted. I needed to understand why she did what she did, and I think she's truly sorry, Father." King Agatha sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead. "Adana, what your mother did, it's not something that can be easily forgiven or forgotten." "I know, Father," Adana said quickly. "But shouldn't we at least give her a chance to make amends? Like we're doing with Bulma?" The king was silent for a long moment, considering his daughter's words. Finally, he spoke. "Your heart is kind, Adana, but this situation is complex. Let me think on it. For now, please don't visit your mother again without informing me first." Adana nodded, looking both relieved and disappointed. As she turned to leave, the king called out to her. "Adana, thank you for telling me. Your honesty means a great deal." As Adana left, King Agatha sat back in his chair, lost in thought. The question of what to do about Ula weighed heavily on his mind. In the village, Prince Boma, he noticed Nana, the witch, watching him from her stall. He approached her, bowing his head respectfully. "Good evening, Nana. Is there anything I can help you with?" Nana's wise eyes studied him carefully. "You're doing well, young prince. But remember, the path of redemption is long and often difficult. Are you prepared for the challenges that lie ahead?" Bulma nodded solemnly. "I am, Nana. Or at least, I'm trying to be. I know I have a lot to learn still." Nana smiled, her face crinkling with kindness. "That's a good start. Now come. I have something to show you." Curious, Bulma followed Nana to her small hut at the edge of the village. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of herbs and incense. Nana moved to a small table, picking up a simple wooden box. "This," she said, opening the box to reveal a small, shimmering stone, "is a truth stone. It will help you stay on your path, reminding you of the importance of honesty." Boma reached out hesitantly, then paused. "May I?" he asked. Nana nodded and Boma picked up the stone. As soon as it touched his skin, he felt a warm, comforting sensation spreading through his body. "Keep this with you," Nana instructed. "When you're faced with a difficult decision, hold it close. It will help guide you towards the right path." Boma clutched the stone gratefully. "Thank you, Nana. I'll treasure it." As he left Nana's hut, the stone safely tucked in his pocket, Boma felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to stay true to his new path. The next day, King Agatha called for a meeting with his advisors, including the Oracle and Nana. As they gathered in the throne room, the tension in the air was palpable. "I've called you here today," the king began, "to discuss a matter of great importance. As you know, the recent events have shaken our kingdom. I believe it's time we take steps to ensure nothing like this can ever happen again." The advisors exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement, others looking wary. The king continued, "I propose we establish a council of magic. This council will oversee the use of magic in our kingdom, ensuring it is used responsibly and for the good of all." Murmurs broke out among the advisors. One stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty, while I understand your concerns, isn't this a bit extreme? Magic has always been a part of our culture." King Agatha held up his hand for silence. "I'm not suggesting we ban magic. Far from it. I want us to understand it better, to harness its power for good. Nana, Oracle, what are your thoughts on this?" The Oracle spoke first, his voice deep and resonant. "A council could indeed be beneficial, Your Majesty. But it must be balanced, representing both white and black magic. We must not favor one over the other, for both have their place in the natural order." Nana nodded in agreement. "The Oracle speaks wisely. I would add that education should be a key focus of this council. The more our people understand about magic, the less they will fear it." As the discussion continued, plans for the council began to take shape. It would consist of representatives from various magical traditions, as well as non-magical advisors to provide balance. The council would oversee magical education, mediate disputes involving magic, and advise the king on magical matters. As the meeting drew to a close, King Agatha felt a sense of hope. This council could be the first step towards healing the wounds that recent events had inflicted on their kingdom.
Write the word "continue" in the comment section if you want the next part, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Kindly click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share this video. Watch out for more intriguing and eye-catching videos from your favorite YouTube channel.